The birth of a child is always miraculous, but sometimes the miracle is greater than anyone could have expected. Our next story is a perfect example. It takes place not in a hospital, but in a car on the side of a road. It involves medical complications that only trained personnel are capable of handling, and it gives new meaning to the phrase, "The birth of a child is a blessed event."
I called the hospital.
In February of 1999, Donna Fashola McDonough was 7 months pregnant when suddenly she went into premature labor.
I went from having mild contractions to horrible, horrible, horrible contractions.
Come on, honey.
It went from 0 to 10 and skipped everything in between.
Hurry, honey, hurry.
Luckily, Donna's husband Michael was home that day to drive her to the hospital 20 minutes away. But once on the road, they became trapped behind a slow-moving vehicle, and Donna's contractions were getting even stronger.
All of a sudden, I started screaming. I said, "She's coming out, she's coming out. Pull over, she's coming out." And then I said, "Call 911.
The first miracle of that day was about to happen.
I never carry my cell phone. If I'm not working, I don't have it. I don't even remember grabbing it to walk out the door, but it was there.
Ambulance, we need a paramedic.
Michael contacted the emergency operator and gave her their position. An ambulance would be dispatched immediately, but it would take precious minutes before it could arrive.
I'm coming, baby, I'm coming.
At the same time that morning, paramedic George Ware had stopped on his way to work to take a short cat nap.
I'd done that maybe 3 times in all the years I've traveled the highway back and forth. For some reason, there was this car horn honking and woke me up. And I'm like, well, I better get on down the highway so I'm not late.
Unit 16, proceed to 34.
Moments later, George heard the ambulance dispatch call, and at the same time noticed a minivan fitting the description pulled over to the side of the road.
So I thought I'd pull over and offer any assistance I may be able to help with until the ambulance arrived. Certainly not expecting to find her in active delivery.
George had arrived just in time. Donna was having a breech birth.
Look, it is coming now.
I just remember hearing him say, "Oh, dear God," and out came one of her legs. I think it was 2 pushes. She was hanging by her neck, and then everything stopped.
And at that time, all contractions ceased. She just didn't have any more.
And he was just holding her little body. And you know, without a contraction, a push is a joke. He kept saying, "Come on, we got to get the head out."
I'm really gonna need you to push.
I asked her to try to push. Nothing resulted. At that time, I realized that this was a serious situation.
He had 90% of her body out but her head. I had noticed that she was not moving. There was nothing happening, that she was beginning to turn blue. And George was starting to sweat a little bit.
With the baby's head still trapped inside, there was an extreme danger of asphyxiation, as well as cutting off the blood supply to the umbilical cord.
So to relieve that, I had to place 2 fingers inside in the form of a V to help make an airway in case the baby had started to breathe. The baby was starting to turn bluer and was basically starting to get limp.
I didn't know what it was, but I just knew that something was very, very wrong. I could see it when I looked at George. And at that point, I just prayed to God to just let her be okay.
Donna's obstetrician, Dr. Paul Tutter, had been notified of the crisis and was rushing to the hospital, expecting to meet the ambulance there.
Traditionally, in the worst scenario, if there is head entrapment, often there's cord compression. And when the cord is compressed, there's about a 4-minute window. After that 4-minute window, there are horrific consequences to the baby.
Nearly 10 minutes had already passed, and there was still no sign of an ambulance.
Something just came over me that this baby was not alive, and I didn't know how we were going to deal with it.
Several agonizing minutes later, the ambulance finally arrived, and paramedic Andrew Ramuzzi rushed to offer assistance.
We've got an emergency situation.
It was very obvious that we had to get the baby out very quickly, otherwise we were going to have a dead baby on our hands.
It's all of a sudden there was this long-lost contraction that I think just came from heaven.
With me holding the head and George holding the back and the bottom, we rotated and turned and the baby came right out.
She just started breathing and crying and was fine, and everybody was shocked. I think we all just knew that because George was holding her, he was holding her little body, and it went limp, it turned blue, and it died. I mean, the little body that she was in died. And I realized that you know, that's when God just came and he just came and took her. He just came and took her. And he sent her back when everything was okay. When the ambulance pulled up to the hospital, to the emergency room, Dr. Tutter came rushing in.
And because I still was kind of expecting the worst, I just became so emotional when that baby came out, and that baby was perfectly normal and healthy and pink, and it's a moment that I'll remember for the rest of my life.
You guys did a great job. Have you picked out a name for her?
Dr. Tutter said, "Donna, that little baby is a miracle of God, and she's just fine. There's not anything wrong with her. You don't have to worry about a thing."
14 weeks later, Donna and Michael's baby was baptized Mackenzie Maria.
Mackenzie Maria,
And George Ware was honored in the ceremony as her godfather.
George is incredible. I think that we all have guardian angels. Most of us aren't lucky to ever know them. I believe that as much as he's Mackenzie's, that he's mine.
Unit 16, proceed to 3400 block.
A guardian angel.
97
What else could explain the unexpected delay that would place George in exactly the right place at the right time to take control of a situation that could have meant certain death for this child? Today, holding his goddaughter safe in his arms, George is very aware of the miraculous events that led to her birth.
This has been the highlight of my career. It was truly God's work, and I just happened to be his tools to do that. It was definitely a miracle.